welcome you all into the third edition of Orange City Literature Festival organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation in association with GH Raisoni University powered by Raisoni Group of Institutions. I am Aditi Mishra, delighted to be your anchor for today's session on The Creative Trail with Manjiri Prabhu by Dr. Manjiri Prabhu in conversation with Mr. Dipankar Mukharjee. Dr. Manjiri Prabhu holds a doctorate in communication science and is an independent filmmaker for television, a writer, novelist in English, and also the founder, director of a literary festival. She has directed over 200 children's TV programs, more than 50 short fictions and travel films, and has authored 15 books. Her unpublished psychological thrill novel was adapted into a Hindi feature film by NFDC titled Kuch Dil Ne Kaha. Her thesis, converted into a book titled Roles, Reels, and Real, has become a rare reference book for students of Hindi cinema. Manjari ma'am has been acknowledged as a pioneer in India among women writers of mystery fiction, and she has a diverse global fan following. She is also the first female mystery author to be published outside India and has been labeled as the Desi Agatha Christie. And much recently, she has been acknowledged to be a match for Dan Brown by Dr. Shashi Tharoor. She has been invited to reputed international literature festivals like Agatha Christie Festival, UK, and International Women Fiction Writers, Matera, Italy. Her novels, The Cosmic Clues, was selected as a killer book by Independent Mystery Bookseller of America, and The Astral Alibi was honored to be as notable book in the Kiriyama Prize. Her books her books have been published by varied reputed publishers like Penguin, Blossomberry, Random House, USA, Jacob Books, Rupa Publications, and Times Group Books. As the founder director of Pune International Literary Festival, Prabhu has brought Pune city on the international map of literature and arts festivals. She believes that literature heals and is a prerequisite to a peaceful society. She has recently been chosen as one of 50 inspiring women of Maharashtra and has been awarded for excellent in writing by ERTC Global Herald in Mumbai. As well being award the Rex Karamveer Gold Medal Award. She is also an animal welfare and activist promoting caring and adoption of stray dogs. It's an honor to have you with us, Dr. Manjari Prabhu. And this gets even more delighted to as we have Mr. Dipankar Mukharjee, who will be in conversation with her as the moderator. Dipankar Mukherjee sir is the publisher and director of Redomania Publishing. Under his leadership, the house has produced over 120 books in just about 6 years, with some critically acclaimed and award-winning titles as well. He also teaches creative writing and runs the popular Young Author Program for aspiring authors. He is an engineer from Nagpur University, holds an MBA degree from IIT Madras, and has been in the corporate world for 9 years before being an entrepreneur. He also manages business interests in hospitality and manufacturing. I once again welcome you, ma'am, and I welcome you, sir. Also, before moving ahead, I would like to take a moment and acknowledge the support of Redomania Publications as their association is valuable to Orange City Literature Festival. Now, my dear audience, you are about to experience a conversation between very two dynamic individuals. So, without skipping a moment, I humbly invite Dipankar sir to lead us ahead.
Thank you, Aditi. Thank you so much for the introductions. And it was a lovely thing to hear the setup that you created for us to jump into the conversation. So, with no further delay, I'll straight away start the questions that I prepared for Manjiri. Manjiri, welcome to the OCLF festival and this session. We are really looking forward to some interesting answers from you. Let me begin with this whole idea that there are very few authors in India who have a body of work that can compare with you in terms of the genres you've written in, the publishers you've worked with, and the number of books that you have published. Tell us how this journey started.
Thank you, Dipankar. Thank you, Aditi. It's a real pleasure being here today. And it's my first time at Orange Literature Festival, but I'm really looking forward to seeing all the sessions and everything. Dipankar, I think when she read out the entire bio, she missed out Readomania. I've got 4 books by Readomania, and I'm looking forward to publishing more with them. And they're a very happening publishing house. Happy to be with them. So coming to your question, Dipankar, how did this begin? Obviously, I think, I always say that it began when I was young, and as a kid, I was reading Enid Blyton books. But now when I think about all of this, I think, everyone has a soul contract. I think before I was born, I made a soul contract with God that no matter what, I want to be a writer. I think that's where the journey really began. I'm going to go way back, right into the time when probably the universe or God made soul contracts with each one of us. And I think I chose to be a writer. Having said that, I mean, of course, that's something that comes deep from my heart. I don't know if the audience is going to resonate with this answer, but when I was born, let's say, after I was born and I started reading, I got introduced to Enid Blyton, and I started reading children books. And the moment I read her books, I just knew it. I knew that I had to be a writer one day, and I had to create this world of fiction where every person could relate to and carry it forward into their lives, learn something from them, get entertained, be happy. So that was really my goal. And of course, along the way, I started writing. I honestly, Dipankar, my goal was not to be a published author. I know you might not, people might not believe this, but publishing came much later. For me, writing was the goal. I just wanted to write, just bring out all the stories that were inside me, entertain myself, entertain my family, maybe some friends. But I knew I wanted to be a writer. So this concept of being a published author came way ahead in 94 when, Rupa Romance series came out. And I said, let me write a romantic suspense book for them. And that's how it all started. Well, it's been a long journey. So, too many things in it, too many ups and downs, too many challenges. But yes, it's been worth it.
Great. So Manjari's stack of books is so huge that you probably cannot fit them in one screen. I just have a bunch of her books. Okay.
Thank you.
There's very few of them. And if I see through this, okay, you have written this wonderful mystery and thriller series, which is the travel series. You have written children's book, of which the latest one is Adventures of Nitu. You've written science and futuristic fiction, which is Revolt of Lambrun. And you've written non-fiction, which is the Doctrine of Peace. What amongst all of this is your favorite genre to write for?
Wow, that's, it's like asking a parent who's your favorite kid, literally, because it's not just the genre, it's each book. Each book has a story, each book was a journey, each book grew out of some passion inside me. So it's very difficult to say which genre, which book, but genre-wise, certainly, I think mystery, thriller, suspense is my, what should I say, I'm born for it, I'm born to write it. Having said that, when I wrote the Doctrine of Peace, that was something which also came from my heart, but it was non-fiction. So if you want me to choose between fiction and non-fiction, I would any day write fiction, because it means I'm creating a world of my own. It means I am challenging the originality in me. It means that I have something to offer to fiction readers, something which has not been done before. So all these things help me grow as a person and help me develop. So definitely, I think fiction writing and mysteries is my genre, favorite genre.
That's interesting. So for a minute, if I have to stick to fiction, even within fiction, you've written for children, for adults. So while you were writing for children, Was that experience and the process different from how and when you wrote for adults?
Well, actually, I began writing for children first. Like I said, when I started reading Enid Blyton books, and the kind of characters, of course, when you read back just now, when you read Enid Blyton just now, you realize that they're such simple books. But when you're that age, you're so taken up by her characters of Fatty and Larry and Pip and the dog, and you want to live with them in their village and solve mysteries with them. And when I read that, I wanted to create the same kind of world of fiction for the Indian readers. So actually, I began writing children books, but I think I got published with adult fiction first. So when you compare writing for children and writing for adults, I think the basic premise of creating a plot is the same. Okay, it's the way you implement and unfold the plot which would be different. I can afford to be complicated, complex, multifold. I can have multiple murderers, anything in an adult book. But when you're writing for children, you have to keep a certain sensitivity in mind. You have to remember that they're innocent. You have to remember that they're not exposed to the harshness of the world. And you have to project the harshness of the world in a very sweet manner. So I think the basic difference in how you approach them, although plots and stories and characterization would probably be the same.
That's interesting. You've written two books for children. One is Mystery at Malabar Cottage, and the other is The Adventures of Mittu. Now, in both those books, animals play an important role. As a matter of fact, Adventures of Mittu is based on the life of a cat, and in Malabar Cottage as well. So now, why did you give so much importance to animals in your children's book?
Well, animals are such an important part of our lives. It's like saying, why would you give importance to your hand when you're eating? It's as simple as that for me. Why would you give importance to your child in your home? It's that important for me. So I think that as children, those children who don't have the opportunity to grow up with animals around them, I think this is a chance and an opportunity for them to understand that animals, around us, especially the domestic animals, because that's where we begin, are an important part of our lives, that we learn a lot from them, and they would help us in our growth and in our evolution and in our evolving as good human beings. So, but of course, not every person is lucky enough to have an animal in their house for several reasons. The parents may not like it, they may be scared. So lots of other things are there. So I felt that fiction was a very good opportunity to introduce animals in a very nice light and bring out their qualities and help children understand that animals can play a very important role in our lives and they can teach us a lot.
Great. As a matter of fact, if I draw this extension, your book, The Doctrine of Peace, which is a non-fiction book, and it's a magnum opus of your entire life's work, I believe in this book you have presented a whole new idea of how animals, and especially dogs, are important for our existence and our well-being. Why didn't you throw some light on this?
Well, like I said, thank you for bringing this up, because it's like my now my favorite book and non-fiction. And most importantly, Dipankar, I feel that we are all inherently born as compassionate, loving beings. As children, if you look at children and how they operate and how they move around, they're loving. There is no, they'll easily go to somebody. They'll easily, go and talk to somebody. There's very little risk, friction between them and other human beings. It is as we grow up that, things come into our lives, situations happen in our lives. People teach us stuff where we begin to lose touch with the inherent compassion and love within us. So I kept thinking, I felt how is it possible to bring back this love and compassion into our lives? That was happening on one side. On the other side, I was introduced to dogs when I was in college. And my dog Sheena came into my life. She was a gift. I was teaching a friend's daughter French, and I wasn't taking any money for it. So, as a return favor, she gave me a little a Pomeranian. She was a Spitz, and I called her Sheena. She was my first daughter, and Sheena completely changed my life. Till then I was this normal being, going to college and was a part of a rock band, and I used to just generally hang around. Didn't like cooking. It was a very vagabondish kind of a school and college student. But the moment Sheena came into my life, I think my whole perception of life changed. I began to see things very differently. I began to, look at trees differently. I began to see life in every single person and every single thing. And so everything changed. And I realized that here was the answer. Of course, not just then. It took me lots of interactions with dogs, and so much, so many deaths, so much misery, so much neglect, so much love. There were so many things that happened in my life, with dogs, that along the way, my kind of my vision kind of broadened and broadened, and somehow I felt that suddenly I was getting enlightened in a very different kind of way. And I realized that this love and compassion that I was seeking in the world around me could very simply be brought about by introducing an animal who was there with us, who's been there with us for 15,000 years, and who's there for a reason. And I realized that this combination of love, compassion on one side in human beings and a dog could come together for the good of all human beings. And that is how the Doctrine of Peace was born.
You, in that book, The Doctrine of Peace, have interviewed really big people: Menaka Gandhi, Dr. Jane Goodall, Swami Atmapriyanand, Diya Mirza, Bharat Dabholkar, Dr. Stanley Cohen, so many of them. So, did you find a commonality in what they were talking about? Animals, about love? How was your interaction with them?
Well, they all come from different spheres, and they're all stalwarts in their fields. And I didn't really approach them with the angle of talking to them only about dogs. I mean, obviously everyone knows them. Jane Goodall has worked with chimpanzees all her life, but her favorite animal is a dog. Menaka Gandhi has literally, you talk about animal laws, you talk about animals, and the name Menaka Gandhi crops up. So I mean, there are so many people who, in their own field, have worked a lot for the good of human beings. So what I really found, common between all of them was that they all valued life. And I think that is very important. So no matter Bharat Dabholkar is a creative person, and Swami Atmapriyanand is vice chancellor of Vivekananda University, or Swami Bal Yogi Bhavnani runs the Pondicherry Gitanand, his ashram, or David Ji, who was the ex-CEO of the Deepak Chopra Institute, but meditates with his dog, and so many other people. Diya Mirza, who is a UN messenger of peace. So all these people, no matter what they're doing in their fields, whether creative, scientific, environmental, spiritual, they all value life. And I think that is the foundation for any theory to grow, for any kind of interaction between two human beings.
That's wonderful. In fact, the book comes out as a really good piece of spiritual reading, which can help people understand the value of love and compassion in life. And that's a very good piece of literature. Moving on to your thrillers, and I have a very specific question about destination thrillers. So, for audience, if they don't know, Manjiri Prabhu is the person who introduced the concept of destination thrillers to India. Manjiri, could you tell us something about what is a destination thriller and how did you conceptualize this whole idea?
So, a lot of authors do use different locales in their books. A lot of people do that. Like they base a story somewhere. I mean, that's a very common practice. But very few, at least in India, have used the destination as a character, which means it's a character like another the hero or the heroine or the protagonist or the villain. So the destination becomes a character. And what do I mean by that? It obviously, the destination is not going to talk to you like a human being, but it can talk to you in a very different way. For example, there could be certain things within the destination that can lead you to your next clue or to the next flow in your plot. Your destination could actually be instrumental in leading your story forward, and that is how it becomes a character. And so when I always like to use locales, different kinds, whether it's Pune and around Pune, whether it's Europe, whether it's any other place. I've always loved to incorporate other destinations in my stories. But it was in, I think, 2001 that I'd been to Salzburg for like you do backpacking. I went backpacking with my husband, and they do the Sound of Music tour in Salzburg, where they take you around the palace where the Von Trapp family lived, in the film, and that's where the film was shot. So they take you around it. That's a beautiful lake. They take you around it, and I saw this palace there, and I was so smitten, literally. I said, oh my God, what a beautiful place with the lake and the mountain, and everything. And I said, what a perfect location for a book, for a novel, and that's like you say, you sow seeds into the universe, and slowly somewhere the seeds keep growing. Literally, about a couple of years later, I was invited to that schloss to actually, be inside the schloss and be a part of a seminar. And the moment I stepped into that marble hall, I knew that one day I had to really, of course, I wasn't there just then to write a novel, but one day this palace was going to be a character in my book, which is how 12 years later I went back there and I did it. And that's how this whole destination thriller thing was born for me.
As a matter of fact, I must tell my audience here that such is the power of Manjiri that before I knew her personally on one-on-one basis, the book Trail of Four, which is based in Salzburg, made me travel from India to Austria and visit Salzburg to actually go around and see places mentioned in this novel. So that is the
Lovely.
power of a destination thriller. So that's
Lovely.
really, really very interesting, Manjari. So you have based your first novel in Austria, second one in Scandinavia, and you're
In
going to base
Sweden. In Sweden.
Sweden,
Yeah.
and you're going to base the next two in a few other places. You have a character who's common among them. Tell us something about the character you've built, which is a common factor across all these books.
So yes, so it's a series, which means there has to be a main protagonist, and that's Ray Parker. So Ray Parker is an investigative journalist, and he's a filmmaker also. But what is peculiar about, not particular, but peculiar about Ray is that he gets visions, psychic visions of a place he's been to, if that place is going to be in danger. So, for example, in the trailer for four, he gets this vision that there's a huge black cloud, looming over the palace, and his heart starts palpitating. He gets this vision, and he knows that something's going to happen at the palace, and that's how he lands there. So, Ray is a very interesting character. He doesn't speak too much. He's very intuitive. He's got a spiritual bend to him. And he's got, of course, a dark past, which you would know if you read the book and the series. And he's gone in the series, he moves around from place to place, and gets caught up in the history and the intrigue of that particular place, of which he has a vision. So that's it. And of course, along the way, he's going to meet interesting characters, and Ray has multiple romantic interests through each book. He may not end up with them. Sometimes he would, but ultimately, of course, he's going to end up with someone. But the point is that he's a very deep and intense character. And I literally saw him when I created him. My first vision of Ray was a vision of him, a man with a ponytail, in a leather jacket, standing by a lakeside, looking at a mountain with his back to me. That was my first vision of Ray Parker, even before I created him. And so that's the power of his influence on me.
Why do I feel this sounds like the tour guide of the Sound of Music tour? Did you
No.
get influenced by the gentleman who
No.
takes you as a tour guide?
Dipankar, I wish the tour guides were so handsome, or so mysterious, or so intriguing. I wouldn't need to create a character at
But
all.
you didn't see his face. You saw his ponytail and his leather jacket from the
Yeah,
backside. How do you
but I
know
could
he's
see a
handsome?
profile. No, I could see a profile and a nice sharp nose. So I know how he looked. And he's got glasses, by the way. So
Oh,
it's got an
interesting.
intellectual bend here.
Oh, okay, that's cool. That's very interesting. That's a very nice way of letting our audience know how does the mind of an author work. That's very, very interesting. You also have the credit of creating India's, definitely, I don't know about the world's, first detective who works with astrology.
Yeah.
Tell us something about that.
Again, that's home ground for me, astrology. I have grown up in an atmosphere of astrology because my mom is a quite reputed astrologer. She studied. She was she was the first lady astrologer of Pune. This is like way back, even before I was born. So you can imagine that I probably learned astrology when I was in her stomach, literally. Like who is that? Who's the
Abhimanyu.
one? Abhimanyu. Yes, that's right. So something like that. So when I was born, literally, I had astrology all around me. But of course, I didn't think of an astrology mystery series then. There's a story that I would like to share. So a lot of people used to come to my mom to ask her about, problems and issues and all that. And this is a story my mom shared with me. She was in a kind of a party when this Bollywood director came to her and said that, there's this really urgent question I want to ask you. And since you're here, will you please answer it? And she said, yeah, sure. And she kind of remembered his horoscope. My mom has this fantastic memory where if she sees one horoscope, she's never going to forget it. So you ask her 10 years later about that particular person, she'll still remember his horoscope. So she said, okay, tell me what it is. And he said, he took her aside a little bit and said, I want to know when I will have a son. So my mom just, thought of his patrika, and then she looked at him and said, do you want to go somewhere private? Because this is a little, this is a little odd. He said, no, all these are friends. You can definitely tell me when I'm going to have a son. So she said, okay. She said, okay, here's the thing. You already have a son. You just can't claim him as yours. And yes, so it was very shocking. He was shocked when my mom told me this. I was shocked because suddenly I realized that you're dealing with something. A horoscope is something that can tell your deepest secrets to an astrologer. And that set me thinking. I said, if your horoscope is like an X-ray of you, why has it never been used in solving a crime or finding out if a person is capable of crime? And then that set me thinking, and that's how I conceived the Cosmic Clues, where Sonia Samath, who's a Pune-based detective, solves cases with the help of horoscopes. And there's no going back from there. That
That's
was history.
wonderful. You've got this Ray Parker who has a ponytail and is handsome. You have Sonia Samath who is solving cases with astrology. You've got this bunch of kids in the Spunky Cousin series. Oh, let's talk about the Spunky Cousin series. So, what do you have in mind about them? They're about children.
Yes. So yes, of course. So Spunky Cousins are basically like the famous five or Secret Seven, except that they're homegrown again, and they are born in the soil of India. Okay, why I'm saying this is that when I grew up reading Enid Blyton books, I had a kind of an identity crisis. I thought that you eat scones and have lemonade and you ride bikes in the countryside, and I just thought that that's how you do it. You have sandwiches in the open and you solve mysteries. I thought that's what your life is all about. And then so I grew up thinking I was English. I was literally
As a matter of
British.
fact, I want to just add something here. A
Yes.
lot of, at least me and a lot of people in my generation, would always wonder why is the sunny day lovely. We could never figure out why and how can a summer day be lovely until
And
we
also
realize
that,
that the weather
and
yeah.
exactly. And also that food always tastes better on picnics.
Yeah,
Because they
absolutely.
always pack something and they go cycling somewhere. And you won't believe it, the influence on me was so strong, on all of us, my
Yes.
sisters and brothers, that we used to literally have a secret club, like in her books. And we used to follow people on the road, anybody who looked suspicious, trying to find out if this is a suspicious person and try to see if there's a mystery there. So that's the kind of strong influence Enid Blyton had on me. But I realized that as I grew up, and that the writing I was doing was all a rehash of what Enid Blyton was doing. The kind of Peter's Wood and a fatty kind of character and all that. And somehow others wouldn't relate with it the way I did, because I was half British in my head, because of her books. And I realized that that's not really who I am. I'm an Indian, and there are no beautiful, around my place. There's no beautiful countryside that I can go in the fields and eat. I would be more scared of the snakes in the field, I think, more
Manjiri,
than
you're lucky you have Pune around you. Actually, Pune at
I
least
know, but when I was
locations.
yeah, I know, lots of beautiful stuff around Pune. But what I'm saying is that, like children, you can't just pick up a bike and go out into the countryside.
Oh, yeah,
I wasn't living in a village. I was
Yeah.
living in a city, and there's traffic, and parents are wary of letting your children go out in the street and play and all that kind of thing. So I realized that there was this certain how should I say, kind of a friction between my concept of her books and me growing up. And I had to bridge that gap with books of my own that Indian children would read and not have a problem growing up and identifying with themselves, which is why the Spunky Cousins were born, even when I wrote them, way back, where I wanted children who were reading Spunky Cousins to enjoy the same kind of love for outdoors and love for mysteries, but within India and within our surroundings. And that is how the Spunky Cousins solved their first mystery in a seaside coastal village. And they're going to go on to solve many mysteries in different parts of around Pune or wherever, whatever.
Wonderful.
So that's the fun. Yeah.
That's really wonderful. I think we've talked about our books. Let me ask you a very generic question about your career. If you had an option of redoing your journey, would you do something differently?
Lots. Certainly lots. Yeah, because I'll tell you why. I was working in a place called Balchitravani, which is a government setup where we did lots of television productions for children. And I lost a lot of time there, I felt. As a writer, when I look back today, I felt that if I'd written 18 books today, probably I would have written 40 books today if I had not spent so much time, working in that atmosphere. But of course, you need money, you want a steady job. There's so many things. But now when I look back, I would have left that job much earlier and started writing much earlier, or taken writing more seriously much earlier. That's one thing I would do. Second thing, what I would do is, be more outgoing and would have spent more time amongst readers. I always believe that writers write, readers read. And I spent I look at the way you're laughing, but honestly, it's only now that I've realized that I need to step out and promote books and all that. And I was completely orthodox in my approach, and I felt I needed to write. That was my goal.
I hear you completely.
Yes. So probably if I'd started that earlier, when I was writing books, instead of sitting in my corner in some part of the world just writing, I would have stepped out and tried to connect with readers. Maybe if social media had happened earlier, I would have done it earlier. So those are the kind of things I felt that my writing, I felt, was ahead of times. I think the world had to catch up with me in terms of social media and stuff, I felt, honestly. So maybe the timing was all kind of not over, it wasn't right in many ways, I felt.
You know, a veteran, you've got 3 decades of experience in the industry. So what is your impression of the publishing industry in India?
Today, you mean, or from
all the time, generally, and no political answers?
No, I can't give any political answers. I have to tell you this. The publishing scene, as far as I am concerned, is tough. It's a very tough world out there, I feel. When I started writing, I got published rather easily. Rupa Publications took up my books quite easily. The first 2 books was easily published. Then I went through, because I was doing other things too. But then getting my next book out was tough until The Cosmic Clues happened, which was published by Random House USA. And so what I'm trying to say is that no matter how many books you publish, okay, it's always difficult to publish your next book. So when I look at the publishing scene in India today, I know that there are lots of writers out there. I know that if tomorrow I stop writing, no one's going to miss me. There are going to be 10 other people who are going to be writing, probably the same kind or probably different or whatever. So when I look at the publishing scene today, I feel that it has gone haywire. I think there is no discipline in publishing. I think there is no commitment in publishing. I feel that publishers are not really, they treat the book like a product. And whereas authors, for them, it's their labor of love. And I think until this gap between publishers treating books like their products and writers who look at it like the labor of love, and unless there's some sea of connecting bridges between these two, I think there's always going to be this sense of incompletion, something dissatisfaction between incompletion between the publisher and the author. I think there is this major relationship problem between publishers and writers as long as the book is only treated like a product. I'm not saying every publisher does that. I know that some of my publishers are really great. So I'm not complaining. Okay, I'm not going to take names. This is not a complaint. This is an analysis of the situation where I feel that if publishers are more communicative with writers, take more risks with writers, treat them like their children and not like people to be used, because you see, all said and done, when the sales numbers are very important, I agree, but all said and done, when you calculate 100%, how much do writers really get out of it? It's really so minuscule that all the work that you do in 6 months and in 1 year is only a labor of love. It is never going to be for money. So I think publishers need to understand that they need writers. Writers need to understand that they need publishers, and that this synergy will have to be positive and will have to be productive, mutually productive. And I think a change needs to happen in the field of publishing.
Okay, that was a very nice and interesting answer. So, what do you think is the future of publishing in India?
Oh, it's good. I'm sure it's good. I'll tell you why. Because publishing, people are no more dependent on publishers to be published. I think, and therein lies what should I say? Therein lies the answer.
Democratization of publishing?
Well, yes, to an extent, but yes, absolutely. The monopoly of publishers is slowly going away, it's evaporating, it's vanishing as more and more options are open to writers who want to write. So as long as you're happy self-publishing, of course, or ebook publishing or whatever it is, but I can see that the satisfaction of being published is no more dependent on publishers. And that is a game changer today. And when I look at the future, I mean, for example, for me, I would always like to be traditionally published. Okay, I would, because I feel that there is some kind of a value addition to what I'm doing, or some kind of a credibility to what I'm doing, etc., etc. But that may not be everybody's viewpoint. Some people may like to have full control over what they're doing, which is also good enough. I mean, I'm not saying that this is good or that is bad. What I'm saying is that the future of publishing is going to be varied. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be, how should I say, it's going to be multi-layered. And as long as people want to write, there are going to be options open. And I think that's going to be great.
That's nice. The first answer like a stick, and the second answer like a carrot. I love that. It's a carrot and stick approach. Okay, so let's talk about the reading habits. What do you observe about the reading habits of Indians?
Oh wow, that. If you ask me about the publishing scene, I'm going to say writing scene is good, publishing scene is good, but the reading scene is seriously worrisome. I feel that, I mean, you do see people reading all the time, but are they reading books? That's something I'm seriously doubtful about. I know, when I was growing up, I could see people reading everywhere. Okay, and I could see that libraries and schools and parents encourage reading. Okay, today, with all the options open to us, with the Netflix and OTT platforms and everything on mobile, and whatever, outdoor sports, everything that's there, reading has a very low rank on the scale of knowledge and education and entertainment and everything. It comes somewhere last. Also, the kind of experience that reading gives you, which is completely inward. It's an inward experience. It's something that you experience within you. It's not outward. And so very few people really want to stay inward nowadays. They are all outward. There's exhibitionism. There's because of social media, obviously, there's everything. People need to see everything around you, and that has kind of seeped into our characters too. Not our characters, into the characters of the kids, because they're growing up seeing social media exposure, flaunting what they're doing every day, travels and everything. So everything around them has become a matter of display, whereas reading is a very private experience that nobody needs to know about. And I think therein lies the problem why reading has gone down, because people are now all out there, their lives are all out there, and reading requires you to be in there somewhere. So I think that is one of the major problems with the reading nowadays. And this is a trend which is growing, and a lot of people considering, career options, and parents who are so competitive about their children are pushing the children to more and more outgoing options, not ingoing options. And so reading of fiction, I'm particularly talking about fiction, of course, is really going down, I feel. And especially as far as my books go, I feel that my audience, maybe in the first book, 94, is still reading my books. Where's the new audience? Literally, I feel that. I mean, the people who read my books then are still reading my books. There might be consistency, but really, if I'm writing for 30 years, and if every year at least 10 people are added, or 100 people are added to my list. I should have at least a stable of readers who, in thousands right now, would be reading my books. Is there? Not just me. I'm not just talking about me. I'm talking about every author who's been writing for a long time. Do they have a stable of readers which multiplied over the years? I seriously doubt it. Everyone, I mean, people do pick up casually, might read flick through a couple of pages, drop the book. There is no attention span, there's no retention span, there's no excitement about reading. And all this is because of the changes happening around us all the time. Did I take too long to answer this?
No, but a very, very expansive and a very detailed answer. That takes me to my next question. Aditi, how are we doing on time? Do we have a couple of questions?
Yes, sir, you may.
Great. Thank you. So marketing has become a very, very crucial part of an author's life, right? And marketing is something which is a dreadful activity considered by most authors. How do you see marketing, and what importance do you give to marketing?
Well, like I said, I was partly not prepared for this change. When I wrote my first few books, and after a gap, I came back with, I think, the Cavenside Conspiracy after a gap of 5 or 6 years. I realized that everything had changed. It was just no more enough to write a book, sit back and write the next book. Now, the success of an author lay in being a multifaceted, multi-talented person. You have to be a writer, you have to be an orator, you have to be a socializer, you have to be a social media expert, you have to, go out and meet people. You have to probably even invest money in your PR. So much was happening out there that I realized that the world had changed. Was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? When I look at the changing trends and I look at the kind of authors writing, I mean, so many authors are writing books, so many authors. I look at it this way. Why would anyone go out there and pick up your book from hundreds of books out there? Why would somebody do that? And I think that is where marketing comes in. I think today it is an essential evil. I think it is important for authors to really connect with their readers, to go out there and help them choose your book from hundreds of books. And that is something that you need to, you have to change with times. And today I'm talking to you because of that, because of all my books. And I was a recluse of a person. I think I made the transition pretty successfully, I don't know if you'll admit it or not, but I think from being a recluse to talking today about marketing being a good thing, I think I have evolved quite a bit. But having said that, it's not only the author's job. I think publishers need to invest equally in making their, in the visibility of their authors. And I think somewhere that there is again a friction between that.
Interesting. That's a very, very, very good point of view, I must say, and a very balanced point of view on that. Coming to my next question is, what do you think should be the path taken by an aspiring author who wants to build a career in writing?
Are you sure he wants to build a career in writing? That's the first question I would ask any
Could be a
author.
she.
He or she, I would say, do you really, 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 really want to do this? Is that what you want to do in your life? Write and only write is the first question I would ask that person. And if the answer is yes, I would say then enjoy the journey, because it's going to be a long, 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 long journey and a lonely one. Okay, so that's what I would tell the person. Be ready to enjoy everything, ups and downs. Just enjoy it, because if you don't enjoy it, you're going to go into depression, literally. So you have to learn to enjoy what's coming to you and write from your heart. I always say that. Write what you believe in, write what you really want to write. Don't write because someone else is writing, something very successful and you want to, jump in the bandwagon. Don't do that. Write what you want to write what you believe in, write from your heart and enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy your own books and your own writing process, you're going to end up regretting it all.
So what is the best advice that you would give to people to improve their writing? So that was the career advice. Now about improvising their writing.
Oh, improve their writing. Well, of course, lots of reading. When you read, writing comes naturally, which is because I am not a trained writer. I didn't go to any creative school or, I can teach. but I'm not taught. I wasn't taught. So that is because I did so much extensive reading as I was growing up that writing came to me as a natural form. So I think writing is a very important part of it. Secondly, to improve your craft, you need to experiment. I mean, you can't just write one book and stick with it. I think you need to work out of your comfort zone all the time and challenge yourself. Like I said, challenge the originality, challenge new plots and new ideas, new genres, challenge yourself all the time. So your craft improves. And language, of course, you have to, with reading and taking part in sessions like this, you start improving on your languages and the words keep coming to you. Half the time I miss out all the words, but when you're in, involved in discussing things and discussing books and are part of book clubs and go to lit fests and you do all this, go the full circuit, I think it all helps you improve as a person and as a writer.
Great. Tell us something very interesting and quirky about your writing process. Is there a certain way that you are superstitious about writing, like you wake up at a particular hour, or you put something on your writing desk, or you look at somebody's face before you start writing? How is it like?
Oh, no, I have no such thing. I'm a very random writer. I've been asked this question, do I have a routine? All these things, what are my quirks? My quirks are that I guess the only quirk I really have is that I need to take a long, long, long walk to create my plot. If I don't walk, my thinking is in my walking. So this is, I have a very funny picture. I wish I could show it to you. When I was at the palace, the Schloss, writing my book, I was stuck on a certain plot idea. There was a block and it had just snowed, and so there was this one clean path which was absolutely untouched and pristine. And when I started thinking about the plot, I started walking up and down just that little bit, that stretch of road. And by the time that idea came to me, because of the walking, that path was covered with thousands of steps, my own. So I took a picture of it because the path is a pristine thing. And then after my thinking, so it became a thought path for me. So literally that is, I think, my biggest plus, that if I need to write, I need to walk. And I walk like miles just to get my plot right and my characters right. I need to walk and walk and walk. And then when it's all done in my head, I sit down and write. So I guess my biggest quirk is that I walk.
That's wonderful. That's a very interesting and unknown fact about you. Good. Thank you for sharing that. What are you writing next?
Yes. Well, I've got multiple ideas happening. I wish there were 4 Manjiris with multiple hands, because I've got so many ideas. I don't know where to begin. But I think the next book will be another fiction, a mystery. And well, I'm halfway through and hopefully it'll be out next year.
Great. I think it was lovely talking to you, Manjari. We had a great time knowing so much about you and your writing and your career. You are an inspiration to so many young people who want to jump the bandwagon and write. So I hope they've listened and heard you and will take tips from you. Where can your audience reach you? How do they get in touch with you?
Well, they can write to me. Where can they get in touch? I think through you. I think the best thing would be through you.
Okay.
Let
And
them write
obviously,
to
you
you.
have a Facebook page. They can connect with you on a Facebook page. You're
I
present on
Yes,
Twitter
but
and
the problem,
Instagram.
I know they can do all of that. The only problem is that if they email me, I don't, literally, how should I say? There's so many emails coming in that I'm a little lazy. So, I tend to skip certain emails and stuff like that. So I think the best thing to do would be, if they're really serious about all of this, of course, they can drop me a message on Facebook and on Twitter and all that. I'm open. I'm a pretty socially available person that way. But if they really need to connect with me for a book project or something, the best thing would be through you.
Thank you so
You
much.
be my spokesperson, Dipankar. You be my
My
decider.
pleasure. Absolutely, my pleasure. It was lovely talking to you, Manjari, and I think we had a great time. And with that, I hand over the session back to Aditi.
Thank you so much, sir. But I must say, I do agree with you that this session was the greatest session. And the thing that I am taking away with me, that if you want to write, then write what you love and keep doing the things and enjoy the thing which you are doing. So that is like something that I really loved about this session and which I'm also taking home.
Thank you.
So, at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Manjiri Prabhu ma'am and Dr. Dipankar Mukharjee sir for joining us today. We wish we get to hear you both again and be equally enlightened as we all are today. And for my dear audience, I am sure that after witnessing this session, this great session, you all are taking home an enriched version of yourself, just as I will. Thank you for joining us today. Until I see you again, this is Aditi Mishra signing off.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Welcome to Raisoni Group.